Now, given that the Walt Disney Company is still dealing with endless backlash and criticism toward not just Snow White, but also Rachel Zegler, and given that Disney CEO Bob Iger is desperately trying to get involved in damage control yet and yet again, we already see that Disney is beginning to fail with their damage control efforts, and it's really not working at all to any degree at this point. We already know that they lost well over $300 million for this movie. As we speak, there is really nothing going on with this film when it comes to box office results. Everything is beginning to drop significantly. We already had a 70+% drop at the box office just a couple of days ago, which is very alarming for the Walt Disney Company. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, Rachel Zegler is seemingly very bitter and very much, becoming one of those actresses that likes to express their anger toward the general public after things don't go their way. We already know that Disney got rid of Zegler from the entire studio, from the entirety of the Walt Disney Company, to no longer be associated with any production moving onwards. That's exactly why they fired her from projects like Toy Story 5 for doing voiceover work, Pirates of the Caribbean remake, another untitled animated Pixar film, and a whole lot more that are no longer happening. Now, focusing on Zegler, we already know that she is the main contributing aspect as to why this actual movie failed at the box office. But let's be real, it's not just limited to Zegler. She did play a big role. A lot of it had to do with Bob Iger approving this mess right from the get-go. And about Gal Gadot, look, she's a professional as a person, as a human being, but in this movie, even her acting, I believe, was very subpar as well. Let's just be honest about this. But what's interesting about all of this moving onwards is that with the Snow White backlash only getting worse for the Walt Disney Company, especially after the 70+% box office drop led to Disney losing $300 million at the box office and, of course, at the studio. Altogether, for starters, one major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler going off the rails after she was fired by the Walt Disney Company altogether and from other studios as well that want nothing to do with Zegler in the industry. Now, Zegler delivered the following. To be quite honest, I think this business can be very cruel for women wanting to pursue or by expressing themselves in the public. Far too often are actresses ridiculed for sharing a political opinion or their views on society, and I think that's the number one flaw when any upcoming actress is just getting into this business that is obviously very one-sided with our film. In particular to Snow White, I think the response we received tells us that we need more education in this country and throughout the entire world, and that this industry and how the various studios perceive criticism seriously needs to be fine-tuned. I have no comment on the status of my career, but as a woman, as a grown woman, I will tell you that there is a growing level of unfairness in this industry, only for many actresses like myself to be pushed to the wayside when those running these films have a means to an end. It's a very cruel business for one to get started into, and I wanted anyone trying to pursue it to keep your head up and to really just trust in yourself only. The greatest challenge that I had with now is that I was able to finally express myself in Snow White as a woman in this film, and getting to work with Greta, Erin, and Mark was the chance of a lifetime to create a version of Snow White that doesn't need to attach to the burden of the 1937 original from Disney. We needed to provide change. We needed and thought it was necessary to redesign and change the character's background. I mean, that was a must. So guys, let me just stop there for one moment. The fact that she is doubling down on how we had to change the character's background, obviously she's talking about how Snow White needed to be called Snow White because she survived a blizzard, not because of her skin color, not because of her appearance. That was all changed by the Disney Company. The whole who is the fairest of them all aspect in the film, that was also changed. It's about who is, the bravest or the most worthy for the kingdom, stuff like that, as opposed to the actual character design and the actual character's substance. Now, again, she goes on to allude further. I would say that when you are someone that engages in activism and considers yourself to be a feminist, she says, you are obviously going to be labeled as a this or that in this business. This is to be expected coming from the toxic male demographic that doesn't have a clue how to handle a modern version of a character that is just so iconic for 40+ years easily. Some would say, why do we have to change the character at all? It's 2025 now and the times have changed. But unfortunately, this industry has not changed, and women are still dealing with the short end of the stick. I will make it my mission to show the world that one can fall with challenges and rise up like a powerful leader, just like Snow White was in this film. Again, guys, let me just say one thing about this. The fact that she has no comment on the future of her career, I think is very telling. It shows you exactly what we have been talking about, what's been going on behind the scenes between herself, Blumhouse Studios, Productions, as well as Legendary and Warner Brothers for the Godzilla film in 2027. She was also booted from that. She had a handful of other films associated with even Paramount that she was let go from. This is not looking good for Rachel Zegler, and all of the main Hollywood studios, the major Hollywood studios, they're hearing her name all over in the mainstream media, and they don't want anything to do with her, alright? It's just not stopping for her, and if she's even lucky, she'll have an independent studio working on a film with her, and that's if. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, like I've said before, this movie, I think, could very well end the Disney live-action remakes in the traditional sense. You know, when you're looking at things like how The Little Mermaid was made, how this movie was made, what they were trying to do with Sword in the Stone that was ultimately cancelled, and how it's being restructured as we speak. Same exact thing goes for Hercules and a whole lot more. Now, again, she goes on to close. Not only do I believe it is wrong, but also I feel it is what's contributing to a declining society. I hold no regrets on my previous thoughts and comments for this character. It's what this industry needed to create the test, what is accepted and what's not, and we still have an obvious problem with misogyny in society. Again, I think that Rachel Zegler, right from the get-go, when she started spouting out all these terrible comments about the 37 original, about how there's going to be no prince in this movie, how the love story is going to be completely flipped upside down, all this nonsense. She forgot that there's a lot of fathers out there that have, daughters, or even just a family in general that would have seen this movie, and nobody wants to see it, alright? Families boycotted this thing, people, even Disney fans, boycotted this movie. That's exactly why. The box office numbers are where they are at right now. I mean, let's not forget, this is by far one of the worst disasters for the Walt Disney Company because of how much they invested into this thing. As of today, still worldwide, it is standing around $142 million. That is not good at all, because now you're 2 weeks in, and now you're approaching the third week where you have a Minecraft movie dropping in just a couple of days from now, which is going to plague over Snow White. Trust me on that. You're going to see an even more significant drop at the box office by the middle of this week into the weekend, especially once the Minecraft movie settles in. You're going to see a lot of chaos going on at the Disney company. We'll talk more about that in the coming days. So, I've said this time and time again, I think that this movie won't last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, definitely not. You're going to see this thing on Disney Plus in no time, and that's exactly why. There are already dwindling numbers of theaters in the country, for example, that are beginning to boot Snow White out of the theater. It's just not worth keeping it in there. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about all of this below in the comments related to Rachel Zegler, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.